Fully vaccinated people are not required to wear masks. However, candidates, staff, and volunteers may certainly wear a mask anytime during the forum. We've taken the extra precaution of social distancing where possible. We ask you not to make audio or video recordings during the forum and to observe the league's rule that the live stream and recording of each race be viewed only in its entirety. The forum has three main parts today. Perrysburg City Council race is first on the agenda, followed by a short break, which is our second part. And then the third part will move on to the Perrysburg School Board race. Just as a reminder, the league only conducts forums for contested races. The league has published a voter guide in the Perrysburg Messenger Journal and online at vote411.org, where voters can learn even more about the candidates, races, and issues. During the break, we will post voter resources on the screen for your convenience. We solicited questions from the public prior to the forum, and they have been screened for our moderator to pose to the candidates. The candidates have not seen them in advance. Our screeners were Perrysburg League members, Christy Bezzosi and Carol Russell. We have no in-person audience today, but I would like to acknowledge Way Library Technology staff members who are present. They are Rachel Hank Bentley, Nicholas Luca, and Adam Merrier. League members here today are Roseanne Barker and Shirley Johnson, who will be our timers. Greeters are Carol Russell and Deborah Gorman. Marlene Mills is assistant moderator, and our moderator is Colleen Boff. Colleen, I'll turn the program over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Welcome, and thank you to our virtual audience. I will take a moment to highlight our ground rules for today's forum. First, I will introduce the candidates and read the 100-word biographical statement that each candidate submitted. After that, we will move directly to questions and answers. As Jackie mentioned earlier, questions for the candidates were submitted in advance by Perrysburg citizens and members of the Perrysburg League of Women Voters. The questions were then reviewed and selected by a committee of league members to avoid duplication and to choose appropriate questions for each office. I will designate which candidate will be the first to answer each question. After this candidate has answered, all other candidates will have an opportunity to answer the question. To be fair to the candidates, we will vary the order in which candidates respond to each question. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer a question. Our timers will notify the candidates as they approach their 90-second time allotment. When the timekeeper indicates that time is up, the candidate will be permitted to finish a sentence. Candidates will be given 2 minutes at the close of the forum to make closing remarks. Closing remarks will be made in the opposite order as the biographical statements were read. Let's get started. I'd like to introduce Deborah Bourne, City Council candidate. Deborah Bourne was elected to Perrysburg City Council in 2017. Bourne has been a resident of Perrysburg since 1975 and is a Perrysburg High School graduate. She received a BA in communication from BGSU. Bourne is an art dealer / business person. Bourne is chairwoman of the Recreation Committee, sits on Safety, Finance and Economic Development, and served on Service. She was appointed to chair the Firefighters Dependent Fund. Bourne served on PRAC and participated in the Fire Division strategic plans. She serves on the BGSU Leadership Arts Council, the Toledo Zoo's organizing committees, the Cocoon, and Safe Communities of Wood County. I'd next like to introduce Kevin Fuller, City Council candidate. Kevin Fuller resides at 11711 Kingsgate Court. He is married to Christina Fuller. They have sons Addison, Curtis, Aiden, and Walter, and daughter Madeline. He has resided in Perrysburg for over 7 years and lived in Northwest Ohio his entire life. Kevin serves as a business representative for the Indiana-Kentucky Ohio Regional Council of Carpenters and has maintained a career in many aspects of construction for over 20 years. He is active in the Masonic Lodge in Perrysburg and a community volunteer for construction projects at the Inclusive Playground, Miracle League, Project I Am, and scouting projects in the area. I would like to introduce John Meyer, City Council candidate. I reside at 220 West Front Street. I am a family physician who practiced in Perrysburg starting in 1988. I have also been medical director / VP for ProMedica Physician Group, VP of Medical Affairs at Flower Hospital, Senior Medical Director at Paramount Healthcare, and an outside director for Sauter Woodworking Company since 2001. Most importantly, a husband to Linda for 37 years and father to grown children, Jacob, Stephanie, and Rachel, and grandfather to Noah, Jameson, and Hayden. I currently serve on the board of the Perrysburg Athletic Boosters and the City of Perrysburg Historic Landmark Commission. I'd like to introduce Victor Sen, City Council candidate. I came to Wood County to attend BGSU, but quickly realized that Perrysburg was a special place. When I began working in the BGSU Foundation, my wife Tiffany and I made Perrysburg our home. Tiffany and I live in Three Meadows, and we enjoy walks along the tree-lined streets with quick access to Woodlands Park. At BGSU, I am the Associate Director of Leadership Giving, and I volunteer my time as the chair of our Administrative Staff Council. In Perrysburg, I serve on the Historic Landmarks Commission, where I work to preserve and enhance the historic aspects of our city. Next, I'd like to introduce Barry Van Hoosen, City Council candidate. Barry Van Hoosen was elected to Perrysburg City Council in 2013. Van Hoosen has served as Chairman of Safety, Service, and Personnel. Committee work includes economic development, public utilities, and planning and zoning. Barry graduated from Purdue University with a Bachelor of Science degree. Barry and his family have been Perrysburg residents since 1991. Van Hoosen is married to Hallie, and they have 2 adult children, Nathan and Miranda. Van Hoosen served on the Perrysburg School Board for 12 years before being elected to City Council. Barry is active in the community, including Rotary and Chamber. Van Hoosen is a State Farm agent in Perrysburg. And last, I would like to introduce Mark Weber, City Council candidate. Councilman Mark Weber, currently serving in his second appointment, is a retired electrician of 38 years and a lifelong resident of the Perrysburg area. Mark is chairman of the Finance and Economic Development Committee, member of Safety and Personnel Committees, and Perrysburg Land Use Steering Committee, a former member of Service and Public Utilities Committees, Historic Landmarks Commission, and a graduate of the Perrysburg Citizens Police Academy. He also sits on the boards of the Perrysburg CVB and the Perrysburg Area Historic Museum. Mark and his wife Rachel reside on Cherry Street. All right. At this point, we will go ahead and ask our first question. We will start with candidate Deborah Bourne. So here is the first question, then we will go in order. After that, I will call each candidate's name before I ask the question. So here is the question. What is your view of the City of Perrysburg's recently released land use plan, including the concerns raised by the Perrysburg Heights community? At this point, I'll unmic so that you can mic.
Hello. I would say that my feeling is that I am not in favor of the current land use plan as proposed. I do not think that it's fair to the residents of the city of Perrysburg. It's against the fabric of what we are about in Perrysburg. And I would say that the Heights is a vibrant, wonderful community, and I believe that they should be left alone. I had friends from Perrysburg High School where I attended that are from the Heights, and I just think the community should be left alone. We don't need a cookie cutter development in Perrysburg. I think we're a unique, wonderful community, and we need to remain that way. So I would say I am not in favor of the Perrysburg land use plan as proposed.
All right, Kevin, you are next. Do you need me to repeat the question?
Please, just.
Sure. What is your view of the city of Perrysburg's recently released land use plan, including the concerns raised by the Perrysburg Heights community?
Well, I think the current plan, I believe it covers a sliver of the community. The people that, while I honor them for attending and putting their time into to go to those meetings, and while everyone had the opportunity to do that, I don't think everyone was able to get a voice in that. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that frustration now with the Heights community. I believe their opinion matters. I believe that it should have been discussed maybe prior to going in. I guess before that, it kind of got to where it is now. I know they value their community there. I've had a lot of people reach out to me recently with that concern, people that grew up there, people that live there now, and people that intend to live there in the future. So I'm not 100% happy with it, but it's going to take further discussion before any rash decision is made.
Thank you. John, would you like me to repeat the question?
I think I'm good, thanks. Go ahead. Yeah, I've sat in on a couple of the planning sessions just as information was being given. To me, it is really a gigantic what if scenario. And it really is to look forward. And I think, if you take the saying, people don't plan to fail, but they fail to plan. And I think we've certainly seen rapid growth in Perrysburg in the last number of years since we've been here since 1986. It is quite phenomenal. And I think we really have to think outside the box a little bit more when it comes to growth and how we do city planning, because it's going to have impact on facilities. It has impact on the schools. It has impact on our service levels. And I think all of that has to be taken in mind. A lot of people are enjoying more dense population housing now. I mean, we are one of the experience that we live inside the boundaries now versus a typical, suburban subdivision. We like being close to other people. I think there's a segment that want that, but we also have to think about our seniors. Do we have affordable housing? Do we have some of those things available? So I think the comprehensive plan is needed. I'm not sure that we're there yet with this one. And I think the Heights folks need to have a lot more input into that whole process. And particularly since they're still in the township, they're not in the city. So I think all that has to be taken into consideration, what's really important for them.
Thank you, John. Victor, what is your view of the city of Perrysburg's recently released land use plan, including the concern raised by the Perrysburg Heights community?
So, excuse me. So, one of the biggest things that I've heard about as I'm talking with residents is promoting sustainable development. And this will help to kind of explain my thought on the land use plan. I think it is certainly necessary to have a land use plan. I think John makes a great point that we do not plan to fail, that we fail to plan. I think that this is an opportunity to recognize that we failed to plan exactly as well as we should have. The process did include opportunities for open forum, but the land use plan was not created with the entire participation of the populations that it affects. So to answer the first part of that question, I think a land use plan is certainly necessary. We need to do a better job of communicating with residents so that the land use plan really reflects their desires for the future of Perrysburg. To answer the question regarding the Perrysburg Heights community, it has been made very clear by the residents that annexation and the outline of this plan are not something that they want to see. So I am certainly not in favor of annexation or the plan as it is proposed. But I do worry about the future of the Perrysburg Heights community. So I want to explore options to work with the Perrysburg Heights Community Association and move things forward in that community with great respect to the history that they have.
Thank you, Victor. Barry, we'll turn it over to you. What is your view of the city of Perrysburg's recently released land use plan, including the concern raised by the Perrysburg Heights community?
Thank you very much. The land use plan is a set of ideas that have been put forward, not by the administration, not by the city council, but what was hopefully going to be a community oriented idea starting point. And so there are four main areas of emphasis in this plan, and it really is, as Dr. Meyer indicated, just an idea format. And by no means have we made any decisions, and this is going to be an ongoing conversation that we're going to have. In regards in particular to the Heights, there certainly has been over time an encroachment on that community by commercial owners. You see that up and down 25 and on a couple of the other side streets. And so we need to somehow preserve that community. And I know the label that was given was mixed use, which means that there is going to be commercial as currently defined. We may end up eventually just going with what's called the residential legacy plan. I don't know where the community is going to go with this. We should acknowledge that the Heights is in the township, so we don't have any particular jurisdiction over them. So this is an idea that's been put forth that's going to generate significant conversation, just like it opened up with this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. And Mark, we'll turn it over to you. What is your view of the city of Perrysburg recently released land use plan, including the concerns raised by the Perrysburg Heights community?
Thank you. I was on the land use plan steering committee since last October, and I'm very familiar with the whole process. And there was a lot of public input gathered through surveys, and because COVID didn't make it easy, they had to do some virtual things to make it get all their data they needed. But when we did this, there were three main focus areas that they were talked about, and they were all either industrial or commercial. The fourth focus area of the Perrysburg Heights was added way later, and really none of us on the steering committee even knew that was added till everyone found out. And it makes sense. It makes the plan does make sense, because you do need to have a plan in place. But a perfect example of how that plan could be put to work is the area at 6th and Mulberry. And I'll hurry up here. Because that's an area where there was a steel treating plant that is closed down, and that could be a good area. But the Heights should not be part of the plan. Number one, it is in the township, and it could be something that they look at in the future. But look, my wife grew up in the Heights, and she still has family there. We have a lot of friends there, and I've talked to a lot of people there, and they just want to keep it residential. And I totally agree with that.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
All right, we are going to start with our second question. And Kevin, we'll start with you. What is a line item in the city budget that concerns you most, and how will you address it?
I think a line item, and it's only because I think it's on the ballot this year, was a refuse levy, and that was one of the questions that was asked through the League of Women Voters. I think it's important to always look at where we're at and where we're going to be. I think we just talked about that by having a plan. So I see our funds constantly growing and increasing, and we are sitting on what I would consider a significantly large amount of money for government to just be sitting on. So I want to say, with kind of that in mind, like anything else, is going to take looking at details. Why are we doing it? I know there are some reasons for it, but it's continuing to grow. So right now, that's kind of at the top of my list, and why we're asking for it again. I think that was an important question that I took into consideration, that I didn't take superficially. I really got into some of the the details when it came to the expenses and where we're at now, and then also where we're going. So say, to keep things short, that's where I'm at right now.
Thank you, Kevin. John, what is a line item in the city budget that concerns you most, and how will you address it?
Thank you. Is probably a little bit like Kevin. I took a pretty large kind of high level read through of the budget. There was a lot of things that concern me, just because I was lacking details about, why were these big increases in some areas? So I'm not sure there was one particular area that stood out more than others. There were just a lot of areas that there were some substantial increases. Now, I understand that there's a lot of things happened the last couple of years, obviously because of COVID, decreased income tax collections, and then funding from the government. So all that had impact on some of these areas. So again, for me, it's hard to give a good answer to one particular area because there were just a lot of areas that had big variances from one year to the other. So anytime I see major change in budget line items from one year to the next, then it prompts more questions. So again, I could probably write 10 pages of questions about what I saw initially, but I'm sure there's good explanations, but right at this point, I need a lot more information.
All right, thank you, John. Victor, what is a line item in the budget that concerns you most and how will you address it?
So I don't know that there is a single line item in the budget that I would say concerns me most. My real thought on the budget is that we should be using Perrysburg residents' tax dollars as efficiently as possible. So let me speak to a line item in the budget that I think has come up in the past few months as how could we use those dollars more efficiently? And it's the line item of the budget that relates to the Convention and Visitors Bureau. One of the goals that I've talked about a lot with residents and something that is very important to them is supporting local businesses. I've heard many great things about the events that happen in the community. I've heard many great things about the things that bring individuals into town to support our businesses and that therefore do great things for our residents. I would love to look at this line item and see how can we work with the Convention and Visitors Bureau and partner with other organizations like the Chamber of Commerce to make sure that our local businesses are supported, that they feel like this is a great place to do business, and then the residents feel like they can be welcomed into our business owners' shops and do business there. So one line item that I really want to look more into overall, though, how can we spend these tax dollars more efficiently?
Thank you, Victor. Barry, what is a line item in the city budget that concerns you the most and how will you address it?
Thank you. The item that concerns me the most in our budget is whether we have properly funded for the water and sewer issue that we have confronting us. We live in an older city. We have older water lines and sewer lines. We have overflow issues that if the EPA doesn't require us to address, then we need to. And Perrysburg being the city that it is, will address those issues. However, due to the quantity of sewer lines and water lines that are so old, it's a significant number that we're going to need moving forward. Last week, a rate study was presented to the Public Utilities Committee, and we're going to be looking at increases over the next at least 5 years on the water side, even more so. And of course, that's just a reflection of what we're entering into as we take care of the issue of helping maintain the river and the lake, as well as making sure that the water we drink is safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Mark, please talk with us about a line item in the city budget that concerns you most and what would you do to address it?
Yes, actually, Barry and I are thinking right along the same lines because we've been at the same meetings and this discussion's been up quite a bit. But I'm looking at the copy of the budget right here, and the one item that I have really highlighted is the sewer rehab, the I&I reduction. That's the inflow and infiltration reduction into our sewer lines. It is a problem, and we have a lot of, like Barry said, we have a lot of antiquated pipes that need to that are just taking in water. Also, the regional water and sewer district is tied into our system, and they have a lot of old pipes, and a lot of that I&I is coming from them as well. So that's what's causing any overflow issues, events that we have. Some pumps that are tied into our sanitary sewer system. We have a grant program that homeowners can take advantage of to get those on into the storm sewer system in the older section. So that's really an important thing. But if we were to just cap off those overflows like people would think we should do, and some people think we should do, it's just going to flood basements. So we really need to work on the infrastructure that would reduce these extra flows that we have in there coming into the pipes. The city does have a plan in place, and they are looking at, and this rate increase that Barry spoke of, that's being reviewed by the PUC is, well, I hit that stop sign again. Sorry. All right.
Thank you, Mark. And
right.
finally, Deborah, can you speak to what line item in the budget, city budget concerns you most, and what would you do to address it?
Stick. Okay. Hello, Colleen. Thank you very much. I would say a couple of things. I would say that obviously the dumping into the Maumee River is a real problem that we do need to address. And it's been a problem for many, many years. And I would say that we do need to clean it up, as well as Lake Erie. And I believe the vote on city council was 5-2 for cleaning up the Lake Erie as far as the Lake Erie resolution. Secondly, I would have to say probably the refuse levy that is being created in 1987. I say that as possibly as part of the budget. It's a result of a dispute within the community over the desirability of privatizing garbage pickup. It represents the difference between the city's cost of providing the service at that time and a bid by a private company to do the same. Both comparisons became obsolete a long time ago, and the levy is now nothing more than a windfall additional tax. So this gives the city administration more money to waste on unnecessary show projects, and this levy should be abolished. And thank you so much, Colleen.
Thank you, Deborah. John, we're going to start with question number 3 with you. Where do you see the best options for commercial development that will still maintain the community balance for our residential families?
Thank you. I think certainly, Mark outlined one area as the abandoned plant on Mulberry. Certainly that's one area that could be developed from a commercial standpoint that would actually probably improve the neighborhood. We're certainly seeing a shift in retail, going from bigger boxes to smaller shops. I think whatever that can be done around the downtown area without causing more stress from the neighborhood could be continue to be developed. Part of the plan was to do some, maybe some different things with the Country Charm area on South Boundary. Again, a lot of details still to be determined, but there are areas within the community that could be developed or redeveloped in this case that may actually enhance those areas. I live really close to downtown, and what's been going on is really great and enhances the opportunities for folks. And certainly we've seen lots of people come down to the farmers market and other things downtown. So I think that's some great area.
All right, thank you, John. Victor, where do you see the best options for commercial development that will still maintain the community balance for our residential families?
I think the best options for commercial development are going to be in places where this already exists. We've talked about in previous debates, I've talked about the 75 and 475 corridors as places where we already see this commercial development, and putting it in those places does, to Colleen's question, really respect the historic nature of the rest of the city. This really does tie kind of two of the previous points that I've made. And one is promoting sustainable development. We do that by finding growth for the city in the places where it makes the most sense. And we also do that by taking care of the aging infrastructure that Barry and Mark have already talked about, making sure that we have the capacity to grow where is necessary, but that we don't leave behind the places that have been here for so long. So I think those two places are really going to be great areas to focus on commercial development. And then when we are there, it's going to be finding the right commercial development that fits the city. Commercial development is a great thing for residents in the right areas because it helps to bring down the tax base and lower that burden for residents. It also offers services for residents and new businesses that they can take advantage of. So I do think that this is a very exciting opportunity, and finding those right areas, in my eyes, the two corridors is really the key to our success.
Thank you, Victor. Barry, where do you see the best options for commercial development that will still maintain the community balance for our residential families?
I think the city of Perrysburg over time has done a great job of creating a plan where we want industrial and commercial development, as well as residential and mixed use. And so implementing what we have already on the books would be appropriate, because I know it's been well thought out over the years in terms of what type of business and businesses that we want in certain neighborhoods, around certain neighborhoods. I'm going to say that two of the most recent developments, of course, since I've been on council, has been the Costco, as well as Cat, Ohio, off of Echo Junction. Both of those weren't necessarily easy decisions, because we had to change some of the zoning and or variances that allowed that, but I think they're both great fits for where they are. So we have to be able to look at every situation independently, individually, and because it is a mix of industrial and commercial growth that we want. We cherish the fact that we're a beautiful bedroom community, but the only thing that's going to help maintain affordability in this town through property taxes is if we have commercial and industrial growth. So we have a good plan in place in terms of where we want those now. And that doesn't mean that we can't change those in the future if and when it's appropriate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barry. Mark, where do you see the best options for commercial development that will still maintain the community balance for our residential families?
Well, I'm going back to that land use plan. I see a couple of those focus areas that we talked about before that are very good in redeveloping some of the commercial areas that maybe Country Charm, and definitely where that abandoned plant is, to get mixed use in there, because what we want to do is people want to live, and we've learned this through our public data that was gathered, that the trend is of owning a home with a large lot is shifting to people that want to be closer to their essentials with walkability and bikeability. So we really should be developing commercial properties within our current city boundaries. And but we can also offer a really good example of how growth can pay for growth. Growth is that we just granted a CRA abatement and a ProMedica for 2 projects and a jobs grant as well. They're going to bring in 123 full-time jobs and 17 part-time jobs. And that is really going to help. They have a project going in the old Cat building on 25, and they're going to add a huge building there in Levis Commons. So they're going to bring over $10 million in payroll to the city. So that is really good. So along 25 is really a great area for that.
Thank you, Mark. Deborah, where do you see the best options for commercial development that will still maintain the community balance for our residential families?
Hello, thank you, Colleen. I would say the answer would be the Route 25 corridor. Currently, you have ProMedica that is there. And also you have mixed use residents, if you will, developments that are within that, as well as retail as well. And I think that area is somewhat the future for bringing in businesses into the area that will help mitigate taxes upon the homeowners. So I would say the Route 25 area due to ProMedica and in that area.
Thank you, Deborah. And
Thank you.
Kevin, where do you see the best options for commercial development that will still maintain the community balance for our residential families?
Well, I think before we get too hasty, I think if you look at some of the tenant spaces, buildings and things like that right now, we need to focus on filling those any way that we can. And as an elected official, I think it's important to make it easier for businesses to operate within the city the best we can and give them that option to be able to do that. You know, I know over the last year, the pandemic really it shifted many things within the market. And I think we have an opportunity to develop our workforce in the area, to provide jobs by allowing opportunity again for those small and large businesses to move here. If you do go back into Levis Commons right now, there's construction going on. They are expanding there, but there's more room and spaces to be filled there as well. So I think before we get too looking, I guess, out too far, we need to focus on filling what we do have. So I believe that, will alleviate some of the strain if we, Barry mentioned the bedroom community, and I noticed when I'm out there knocking doors, there's a lot of people that are worried about growth. But we're worried about our schools as well. And when we're continuing to see large residential growth, it is putting a strain on the schools. So I think it's something that we need to also consider as we look at toward commercial development.
Thank you, Kevin. Victor, we'll start with you for question 4. We have seen communities across our nation experience natural and/or man-made disasters. How will you evaluate our preparedness for such events?
Yeah, so one of the big things I've talked about with people as well is enhancing our green spaces. And I certainly think that enhancement has to start with preservation. So we have a number of great universities in the area that are doing great work with sustainability efforts and also with preservation efforts. So how do we partner again with other leading experts in this area to make sure that the work that we're doing really reflects the work that needs to be done to protect our natural resources? So many individuals in Perrysburg have told me how much they love the outdoor beauty of Perrysburg. One of the things that continues to come up is how great our parks are, including Riverside Park, one of the most recent additions. We all have to recognize that, Riverside Park being right along the Maumee River, one of our, greatest natural resources, really does enhance the need for protecting these natural resources. So, my answer to the question would certainly be that I want to partner with local experts and local leaders to make sure that we're addressing these issues in the most appropriate ways. I think we do a great job with our internal team at the city, but there is so much groundbreaking research happening that can help us to advance our efforts. And I always think that, partnership is a great way to solve any issue.
Thank you, Victor. Barry, how will you evaluate our preparedness for such events such as natural and/or man-made disasters?
My evaluation in large part comes from our experience in the Public Utilities Department in terms of the number of times we have overflows. And of course, as Mark mentioned, where some of those overflows are coming from. So we need to do a better job as a community to have our sewers separated at the individual home level, because that's why we're having a lot of these overflows. But as Victor said, preservation by all of us individually is also very important, whether it's helping maintain our ditches and making sure that if we can capture runoff, we do, so it doesn't necessarily erode and deteriorate in its path. So I think moving forward, the city is very focused on making sure that we maintain the quality of the water in the river and in the lake. And I think that is a main area of emphasis for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Mark, how will you evaluate our preparedness for natural and/or man-made disasters?
We are very fortunate to be living in a community that is right on this beautiful river. And so that is such an important thing to us that we protect. And I keep going back to these overflows, but they're just something that if we have four outlets now that they happen where these overflow events happen. And the city, like I said, I know there are plans in place that they want to take care and maybe even build a reservoir that can handle the big surge of the rain, and then it can slowly filter through the wastewater treatment plant. That's very important. Green spaces is just very important for this whole community. And our parks, we need to expand our park systems, especially down in the south and west areas of town where our growth is. And I would like to see more of that multi-use paths with bicycles, be able to, and people can get out in those and really utilize our city that way. But preparedness for other disasters, I know our first responders are all very well trained to handle any kind of a disaster. They go through immense training to be sure that they're all trained to handle any kind of disaster that could come our way.
Thank
And
you,
for the
Mark.
first time, I didn't get the stop sign, right? Okay.
Deborah, how will you evaluate our preparedness for natural and or man-made disasters?
Hello, thank you, Colleen. I would say I have a lot of faith in our police and our fire. I think they do a fabulous job. I think the highest of them that can. As far as our water, and it does need to be cleaned up as far as the water and the sewer goes. So we do need to be knowledgeable about that area and take care of that. So the dumping of waste stops going into the river. So I would say that our safety is probably top notch. I would say I sit on the safety committee and I think very highly of them, as I mentioned before. I think the cleaning up the water is another issue as well. So I think those areas would be what I would probably be focusing on. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Kevin, how will you evaluate our preparedness for natural and or man-made disasters?
It's great. I feel it's important that we do focus on the actual evaluation process, and that like anything you'll hear me say is getting people involved, asking the residents' opinions in the businesses, the city workers, and our fire and safety and police, which I feel that, like others have said, they do a fantastic job, and I feel that they're willing to adapt and change at the drop of a hat. So I think it's going to take really some further analysis. It's going to take some input from the city. I feel like we were put to the test over the past year. I think that we did extremely well, and residents, business owners alike. But you're going to need somebody to stand up and kind of pave and lead the way. So that's going to take getting the community involved as well.
All right. And finally, John, how will you evaluate our preparedness for natural and or man-made disasters?
Thank you. I really try to break it down in a couple of areas. A couple of our current council members have outlined nicely of this, really the struggle with our infrastructure as it relates to the sewer systems, because we don't want to be another Detroit. This summer, they had some horrible flooding, a lot of it due to exactly things have been brought up. Other thing is our electrical grid. We live in an older community and we experienced that firsthand. And I think the first summer we lived here, our power was out 4 or 5 times because of storms or other. So guess what? We have a generator, but we can't buy generators for everybody in town. So do we, look at some of those things that can be a problem both for our residents, but also our businesses. So we need to make sure power, but I also look at it from a public health standpoint. And certainly we've been through that with COVID. But, we're not immune to bioterrorism here as well as anywhere else. So what's our preparedness for those kind of disasters or challenges? I agree. I have great faith in our fire and police forces here. They do a great job. But, what are the things they need to make sure they're prepared? And it probably, as much as I hate to spend money on studies, it may be appropriate to have a study to see, do we have some weak points in our infrastructure that we need to look at?
All right. Thank you, John. Question 5, Barry, we'll start with you. Local Facebook pages reflect how divided our city is on issues from water price increases to land use and development to city festivals, to name just 3. If you are elected, what will you do to help heal this divide?
There is no doubt but that social media has changed the way we dialogue, how we communicate. And both over social media as well as individually, I think that we have become a little less tolerant of others, unfortunately, in their ideas. And so I think as a representative, if I'm so fortunate to get reelected, it really starts with having a type of communicative behavior that allows other people to voice their opinion and not necessarily be divided in that process. So one of the roles of being a legislator on city council is to act as a liaison between the city and the community. And so I encourage all sorts of types of communication, whether that's through the social media format, but also email, phone calls, attending city council meetings, and just actually outreach when we see each other at farmers market. We have to understand what those issues are as they're deemed by you individually. And then we have to reconcile that with the city and with what the city council's responsibility is. So thank you.
Thank you, Barry. To conserve time, I'm not going to repeat the question unless I'm asked to do so by the candidate. Mark, you're next. Please let me know if you need the question repeated.
Real quick, yeah.
Sure, no problem. Local Facebook pages reflect how divided our city is on issues from water price increases to land use and development to city festivals, to name just three. If you are elected, what will you do to help heal this divide?
Okay, yes, social media has its advantages and disadvantages. And I noticed, there was a lot of people that are a lot braver on the keyboard than they would be in person to people. So I really don't think that the social media helps us in a lot of ways that way. That's why we need to just communicate directly to people. And I think one of the most rewarding parts of being a member of city council is being able to interact with the citizens directly. And that's my favorite part. I love helping citizens with their interactions with the city. And just being transparent and accessible is, even if it's something as small as calling me about not, getting a pothole filled or dealing with a zoning issue. Not that I want to be the pothole hotline or anything, but if they're ever having problems with the city, I want it, and it's very important that I would help them communicate with anything with the city. So I just feel that we have, as council members, we have 25,000 bosses here. We work for all of you, and we should be there and with an open line of communication. And I think that misinformation is really what causes a lot of divisiveness. And that was true with the situation with the Heights. There was so much misinformation where people thinking that their houses are going to be taken away from them, and they just weren't. So I think it's really good if we just communicate. There's a stop sign. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Deborah, you're up next.
Hello, Colleen. Thank you. I would say, and I don't want to forget a word here, so I jotted a few things down. It's my opinion that racial and cultural prejudices are not present at any significant level among most Perrysburg residents. Throughout my life, I have personally been respectful of others, regardless of background or heritage. And I believe that everyone should be treated with dignity and respect. It is not the role of any government body to involve itself in shaping the personal views of its constituents. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Deborah. Kevin, you're next.
All right, thank you. So in regards to social media, it really is just a sliver of opinion that encompasses our community. I don't feel that it accurately depicts, but in small cells, I think there's some honesty in there. But I think what we've done over the past several years is we've eliminated the respect that we have for each other, and through discouraging dialogue and face-to-face communication. Mark had mentioned there are people tough around behind the keyboard. We call them keyboard warriors, right? And really, they stir up things, and they would never be seen out in the community voicing those things. So I really think it's encouraging dialogue, but also respecting the rights of freedom of speech And I don't have to necessarily agree with that, but we have to also respect the rights upon which our country was founded. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. John, would you like to address that question?
Sure, thank you. As we look at kind of what's going on, certainly to me, the government, I think we're lacking transparency and the ability to have open dialogue. I think those areas are key. Somewhat anticipation of the question around this, I found a great quote that I wrote down today. The world has never had a good definition of the word liberty, and the American people just now are in much want of one. We all declare for liberty, but in using the same word, we do not all mean the same thing. And I think that's why we have to have dialogue. And I'm not sure you can guess who quoted that, but very applicable to now, but it was actually Abraham Lincoln in 1864. So again, things really don't change all that much in some ways, but I think the key was open dialogue and transparency and being aware of differences in our interpretation of what liberty means and what freedom means.
Thank you, John. And lastly, Victor.
Would you mind just repeating the last part of that question? I'm sorry.
No problem. Local Facebook pages reflect how divided our city is on issues from water price increases to land use and development to city festivals. If you are elected, what will you do to help heal this divide?
Yes, so to help heal this divide, I would love to see the community come together around these differences. I want to directly address that there are racial and cultural prejudices that exist in our community and in every community. This is not something that is unique to Perrysburg, but what is unique to Perrysburg is when these things have happened, we have come together as a community. That is how we heal this divide. We come together. As a city council, we can work with, again, partner with other organizations, whether it's hosting events, promoting information sessions that highlight these differences and make us understand that our differences are what make us a community, living amongst each other, learning from each other. We do not need to say that these things do not exist. We do need to recognize them and recognize that we can make progress that serves all of our residents. So what would I do? I will be an advocate for, again, supporting organizations and hosting events that recognize these differences, work to bring us together, but recognizes that we all have a shared goal in this. We have a shared goal in creating a better community for our residents. We have a shared goal in understanding each other, and we have a shared goal in making sure that everybody in Perrysburg feels safe and happy in Perrysburg. So I really appreciate this question and the opportunity to answer it.
Thank you, Victor. Question 6, we'll start with Mark. If the current proposed sales tax levy support for TARDA passes in Lucas County, should Perrysburg consider rejoining TARDA? Hold on. Let's skip that question. Because of time constraints, we need to go right to closing. All right. So for closing remarks, we will start with Mark Weber.
Thank you. I would like to thank the League and the Way Public Library for this opportunity and all of you for taking the time to learn about us as candidates. I know Perrysburg. I know a lot about its past, and I would like to continue to be involved in its future. As a councilman, I have gained the knowledge, focus, and ability to make realistic, common sense decisions. When necessary, I discuss concerns with division heads, business owners, and residents to get firsthand information before making those decisions. I vote with my conscience, always placing the needs of the city above politics and self-interest. My priorities include encouraging responsible residential and commercial growth without expanding our current boundaries. Continue improvements to our infrastructure, including the streets, sewers, and sidewalks. Enhance and expand our park system, promoting more all-inclusive playground equipment. And complete the improvements to access the riverfront. And discuss viable solutions to make Perrysburg a more bicycle-friendly community. Whether you've lived in Perrysburg 6 days or 60 years, and regardless of your background, I am committed to treating everyone equally. I will do my part to make residents and visitors feel as welcome Perrysburg as I have felt my entire life. As a citizen, parent, and grandparent, I have always tried to stay active in the community. I have coached youth sports, organized and participated in multiple local fundraisers, and have contributed to the education of Perrysburg's history and heritage. I am solidly vested in the community. I raised my family here, and they are now raising my grandchildren right here in Perrysburg. If elected to council, my service will continue to be grounded in honesty, integrity, and the utmost respect for my fellow council members, the administration, and certainly the citizens of Perrysburg. I humbly ask for your vote on November 2nd. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. Barry, can we have your closing remarks?
Certainly. I want to also thank the League of Women Voters, Wade Public Library, those that are participating in this Zoom meeting. And I want to compliment the other candidates for stepping up. This is not one of the easiest things we endeavor to do, which is to present ourselves publicly. And so I want to just congratulate and compliment the other candidates. So I've spent the last 8 years on city council, hopefully creating a good government environment. The main emphasis of city government, municipal government, is the service and the safety and the public utilities, as we've spoken of previously. And those are the core issues that the city needs to be concerned with, and that I think we're doing a good job with, but we can always do better. So in the midst of working in a legislative body as city council, we at arm's length get to understand the hiring and the accountability and of city personnel. And it's certainly a pleasure to work with the quality of the employees that the city has hired, certainly as well as the fellow city council members. So the right type of growth is something that we've spoken of earlier, and the right type of growth is a balance between commercial, industrial, and residential. That is the only way we're going to be able to maintain a community that we currently have. So I want to help maintain this great city, and I just ask for your support starting tomorrow and moving through November 2nd. Thank you very much.
All righty. Thank you, Barry. Victor, your turn for closing remarks.
So I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this event today. This has been a wonderful opportunity to engage with residents, voters, and other members of our community to let them know a little bit more about us. Although I have greatly enjoyed talking to all of you over the past several months, I want to recognize that the job of a city council person is to listen to you. And that is what I promise to do. To prepare for this, I've knocked on thousands of your doors, and I've heard the things that are most important to you. I hope that through these past hour, you've learned a little bit more about why I'm running for city council and what I want to do when on city council. But I would encourage you to engage with me more. You can visit my website. You can visit my Facebook page. You can also reach out to me on my cell phone. My number is 440-749-2332. I promise to be this available to you as your city council person. I have always been intentionally involved here, and I will continue to do that. I will not work off of the idea that Perrysburg has to be what it has always been. I will seek out opportunities for progress in the community, but I will do that with the respect to the historic nature of our community. Because of that, I will not be singularly focused that Perrysburg needs to move in one specific direction, benefiting only a few. I will work with all of Perrysburg residents to make sure that we are building the Perrysburg that we want to leave behind for future generations. In a previous debate with the Chamber of Commerce, I said something very similar to that. And since then, I have had great opportunities to connect with the individuals who were there. I hope that I will have great opportunities to connect with you all after this event. But I wanted to, again, reach out to you and not only ask for your votes, but ask for your help in creating a Perrysburg that we want to leave behind. I am very much looking forward to serving you all, and I hope that I can have your vote on November 2nd.
Thank you, Victor. John?
Thank you. And thank you to the league and to the Way Public Library for hosting this event. It is really a great thing to be able to do this in the middle of a pandemic, which I hope we don't have to go through again. As I said in I think it's on my website, is why I'm running for council, and what's my agenda is that I really don't have an agenda, because we don't need to reconstruct Perrysburg. We don't need to throw things out, but we need to continue to keep it a great place to live. When we moved here in 1986, probably didn't have a whole lot of thought about staying, and then it all worked out that I joined the practice in Perrysburg in '88 and have been here ever since. We love Perrysburg. That's really my sole reason for getting involved. We love Perrysburg. It's a great place to live. We've raised our family here. We maybe hope some of our grandkids end up back here, but either way, we're invested in the community. I think the challenges we do face are around growth, because it's been such a great place. It's affecting the schools. And to me, you cannot unhook the schools from the city. We see that as being an ongoing challenge because of school funding. Hopefully things are getting a little better, but overall, we've got to work together, and that includes the township, as we look at growth and how we make that work for the community. I did find again, my favorite president, no surprise. The legitimate object of government is to do for a community of people whatever they need to have done, but cannot do at all or cannot so well for themselves in their separate and individual capacities. And I think, wow, that really sums up what our duties are as government, to supply those things that people can't do on their own. Again, Abraham Lincoln, and actually 1854, before he was president. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, John. And Kevin.
All right, thank you. I did actually had something written, but I kind of trashed it at the last minute. I feel you all deserve something a little bit more honest, a little bit more authentic, and where I'm most passionate, from my heart. So, and I'm not good at reading scripts anyway, but I will say I grew up as a blue collar guy. I'm a proud member of Carpenters Local 351. I value highly my relationship with God, my family, my country, and my community. I value life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and the valuable tenets upon which this country was founded. I also feel that regardless of gender, race, color, creed, I feel that everyone in our community deserves a voice. I feel that you should expect to have your elected official, whether you're a small business owner or a large business owner, or doing business in the city of Perrysburg and hold a stake in this fine city, you deserve someone who's going to give you a voice. I also believe that the decisions that we make on city council and how they impact the schools, we need to be very, very conscious of that. And most especially regarding growth. I believe that you deserve someone with fiscal responsibility, and also someone who's fiscally conservative and financially conservative. I also believe you deserve someone who's a fresh voice. I do provide or intend to provide all the above. So I hope you trust me. I give you my word that I will maintain the integrity and honesty that comes out of my mouth. So thank you all very much. Thank you, League of Women Voters and the city of Perrysburg for this opportunity. Hope to have your vote on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. And finally, Deborah.
Thank you, Colleen. I would like to say a few things. I would like to see taxpayer dollars for police, fire, roads, infrastructure, and recreation programs, not unnecessary show projects. I would like to see recruitment of low impact businesses with well-paying jobs to locate in our industrial corridor and commercial areas. I would also like to see an uphold of our historic district ordinance to preserve our downtown, riverfront, and historic residential area. I would like to preserve the green space and create a plan for designating parks as passive or active. I would like to implement the federal EPA's action plan to clean up the Maumee River. I would like to respect the rights of both residents and businesses by open communication. And I would also say probably one of the things that I'm most passionate about in Perrysburg is that we have a unique, vibrant, historic community, and we need to keep Perrysburg, Perrysburg. And I hope that we continue to do that. We're a wonderful community and we have terrific people here. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. All righty, that concludes the city council portion of our program. Thank you, candidates, for participating today. And Jackie, I will turn it back to you for further remarks.
Thank you, Colleen. And thank you again to the candidates for participating today. You did a phenomenal job. We really appreciate you hanging in there with us in this new format. You did a great job. Normally, this is the time at home where we ask you to applaud, or in the forum where we ask you to applaud. So everyone at home, feel free to applaud and whoop it up. We can't hear you, but we'll know that the good energy is coming. Just a reminder that the recording of the forum will be available via a link on the Perrysburg League's website in the next few days. Be sure again to go to vote411.org for more Q&A with the candidates, as well as links to their websites and social media. We will take a short break and then resume with the school board of candidates. If you are live streaming the forum at home, please do not turn off your device. Leave it running to view the school board portion of the forum. And thanks again. Two from Welcome back to the Perrysburg League of Women Voters 2021 Candidates Forum. I'm Jackie Stedman, President of the Perrysburg League, and we're ready to resume our forum today with the candidates for the Perrysburg School Board. I'm going to repeat a few items from my earlier remarks, starting with a thank you to the Way Public Library for partnering with us and providing the facility and technology for this all virtual event. We are currently streaming to you live from the Way Public Library Computer Lab using their computers and microphones. Thank you to the library's technology department for handling the equipment and technical details, live streaming the forum and recording it for future access on our league's website. We are adhering to Way Library's COVID requirements, which means fully vaccinated people are not required to wear masks. However, candidates, staff, and volunteers may certainly wear a mask anytime during the forum. We have taken the extra precaution of social distancing when possible. We ask you not to make audio or video recordings during the forum and to observe the league's rule that the live stream and recording of each race be viewed only in its entirety. We solicited questions from the public prior to the forum, and they have been screened for our moderator to pose to the candidates. The candidates have not seen them in advance. Our screeners were Perrysburg League members Christy Pizzozzi and Carol Russell. All but one candidate is joining us in person, and we have one candidate joining us from afar. We have no in-person audience today, but I would like to acknowledge Way Library Technology staff members who are present. They are Rachel Hank Bentley, Nicholas Luca, and Adam Marrier. League members here today are Roseanne Barker and Shirley Johnson, who will be our timers. Greeters are Carol Russell and Deborah Gorman. Marlene Mills is assistant moderator, and our moderator is Colleen Boff. Colleen, I'll pass the microphone to you.
Thank you, Jackie. Welcome and thank you to our virtual audience. I will take a moment to highlight our ground rules for today's forum. First, I will introduce the candidates and read the 100-word biographical statement that each candidate submitted. After that, we will move directly to questions and answers. As Jackie mentioned earlier, questions for the candidates were submitted in advance by Perrysburg citizens and members of the Perrysburg League of Women Voters. The questions were then reviewed and selected by a committee of league members to avoid duplication and to choose appropriate questions for each office. I will designate which candidate will be the first to answer each question. After this candidate has answered, all other candidates will have an opportunity to answer the question. To be fair to the candidates, we will vary the order in which candidates respond to each question. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer a question. Our timers will notify the candidates as they approach their 90-second time allotment. When the timekeeper indicates that time is up, the candidate will be permitted to finish a sentence. Candidates will be given 2 minutes at the close of the forum to make closing remarks. Closing remarks will be made in the opposite order as the biographical statements were read. Let's get started. I would first like to introduce Eric Bennington, school board candidate. Eric Bennington has been a Perrysburg resident for 18 years, serving on the Perrysburg School Board for over 5 years and Penta School Board for over 3 years. He is the Chief Financial Officer for the Rudolph Libby Group. Eric has previously served the district as a member of the Strategic Facilities Committee, the Whole Prairie Curriculum Committee, and the Orchestra Boosters. His community involvement includes board membership in several other organizations throughout Northwest Ohio. Eric is a CPA and has an MBA from the University of Toledo, earning the program's Pacemaker Award for his academic and civil leadership. I would next like to introduce David Desser, school board candidate. We have 5 children and have experienced 6 school systems, so I've seen multiple ways to operate schools. These varied experiences can benefit Perrysburg. I am good at finding common ground with others and communicating. A board should have an array of experiences amongst its members and listen to the community. My experiences as a small business owner and being on the Salvation Army board Downtown Toledo Development Committee, which works on the vision for downtown development, West Side Montessori School Board, and Toledo Early College High School Board, positions me with useful experiences to share with the Perrysburg community. I would next like to introduce Sue Larimer, School Board candidate. My name is Sue Larimer, running for re-election to your school board. I have lived in Perrysburg periodically since 1985 and consistently for the last 11 plus years. I have a bachelor's in elementary science education and a master's in teaching and curriculum, where I won the Spirit of Education Award and was initiated into Kappa Gamma Pi honorary. I have 3 children, Patrick, PHS 2000, Jake and Katie, and 2 little granddaughters. I've been in education all my life, subbing, teaching at Liberty Summer Camp, and have taught U.S. Constitution classes for 2nd graders at Toth the past few years. I would next like to introduce Laura Minke, School Board candidate. I have a junior at Perrysburg High School, a sophomore at OSU, and a firstie at the United States Naval Academy. I am currently employed as an administrative assistant for a CFP and have worked for Woodmore Schools, BASF, Vanstar, and Texas Migrant Council. Before moving to Perrysburg, I served on Genoa's school board for over 11 years, including finance, construction, and curriculum committees, and board president. My volunteer history includes Genoa PTO, Carnival Chair, VP President, Library and Book Fair, Mothers Club, TNT Mentoring, SAY, Soccer Coach and Referee, Covered Gala, Church Moms Group, and Religion Teacher, NWO USNA Parents Club President. Dr. Reffert will be joining us from afar, and she will be using her own equipment to do so. I would like to introduce Dr. Lori Reffert, School Board candidate. Lori Reffert has lived in Perrysburg for 18 years with her husband, Randy. They have 2 sons, Ryan and Lucas, both who are Perrysburg graduates. Lori received her undergraduate degrees from The Ohio State University and her master's and doctorate in education from the University of Toledo. She has worked for Toledo Public Schools for 26 years, where she serves in a leadership role. An active and involved member of the community, Lori is past vice president of the Autism Society of NWO Ohio and past president of Greater Toledo Challenger Little League, where she has coached for 14 years. Okay, we will start our questions, and let me see here. David, we'll begin with you. Okay, question number 1. Define critical race theory, or CRT, and are you in favor of including all or part of it in the school curriculum? Be specific as to why you are or are not in favor of it.
I'm inclusive and caring. I am proud how far America has come on these type of topics. Because I want to discuss these types of issues with others and may disagree on how do we go forward, it doesn't mean we're bad people or we're racist. We must listen better as a board. We must follow up on questions and then answer. When parents bring questions about critical race theory to the board and to the administration, they simply say it doesn't exist. They don't ask parents why we think it exists here, and it does in its practical application. Critical race theory books are on the Perrysburg Schools website as preferred reading. So why deny it? Let's talk about it and figure out what's palatable about it and what's not for our children and taxpayers. There are at least a half a dozen other examples of critical race theory in the schools that I'm aware of right now. The board stewards a public school for small children, and so we must err on the side of caution when making these type of decisions and compromise so the greatest number of citizens are represented. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Sue, could you please define critical race theory, and are you in favor of including all or part of it in the school curriculum? Be specific as to why you are or are not in favor of it.
Critical race theory has obviously been a hot topic. So it's defined as a Marxist theology based off of critical theory, which I didn't even realize that that existed. Supposedly, I would have learned about that in all of my education, never heard of it until just recently. But then there's CRT, the other kind, culturally relevant teaching. All right, so we've got the two acronyms, which education is full of acronyms. Critical race theory, absolutely no way. It is divisive. It is set, its main purpose is to divide us into groups and put one group against the other. That has no place in Perrysburg whatsoever. The board subcommittee that I suggested that was passed by the board to oversee the CQ community group that we have that has some CRT things in it has been scrubbing a lot of that for us. They're working very effectively. So no, I don't want that kind of CRT in our schools, but I do want culturally relevant teaching in our schools. That is bringing our community that is a melting pot of the world with everybody in it together to understand one another. And this is something that the students want too. So in that regard, that CRT, yes, I do want, but the Marxist CRT that's going to divide us, absolutely not.
Thank you, Sue. Laura, can you please define critical race theory? And are you in favor of including all or part of it in the school curriculum? Be specific as to why you are or are not in favor of it.
Critical race theory is a divisive theory and ideologies that are invading our education system. I believe that it should not be included in our curriculum in our schools. We always want to be inclusive of all of our children, all of the cultures. We are to love one another. I do not see any place for this in schools. Cultural history, there's nothing wrong with learning culture in school. There's nothing wrong with learning about histories in school. We already learn history in school. We have world history. I just think that this is something that parents need to be in tune with. You need to be paying attention to the homework that your children are coming home with. Talk to them about what is going on in class. And this is something that our schools should not be getting into.
Thank you, Laura. Oops. Thank you, Laura. Lori, could you please define critical race theory, and are you in favor of including all or part of it in the school curriculum? Be specific as to why you are or are not in favor of it.
Thank you. That's a great question. Critical race theory is actually a K-12 college level, or I'm sorry, it's a college level class. It is a graduate level class. CRT is not anything being taught in K-12 schools. There's a difference between critical race theory at a college level course versus what we are teaching our students as culturally responsive teaching. We cannot whitewash history. We are not teaching CRT, and obviously I'm against CRT in a school setting, K-12, because it's a graduate level class. It is not anything being taught in our classes. What we're teaching our children is with social emotional learning and culturally responsive teaching about how to get along with other people. When people say that CRT is being taught in schools, it actually is pretty infuriating to me, because that's not true. I have a doctorate. I have a doctorate degree in education. I have not once taken a class on critical race theory. And so to be clear, we need to educate ourselves on what it actually is, and it is not being taught in school. It is what we're teaching our kids is how to get along with other people. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. And Eric, finally, can you please define critical race theory? And are you in favor of including all or part of it in the school curriculum? Please be specific as to why you are or are not in favor of.
So I'm going to build off of many of the comments that some of the other candidates have already said, and that first of all, critical race theory, as Dr. Rufford said, is the higher level course, a graduate level course, kind of existed out in the Ivy League schools. My thought is that if Perrysburg Schools is teaching it, which it is not, they're not doing it very well, because it is an extremely difficult concept that really exists up at the higher level of classwork. And I'm against it. For those reasons, I'm against it. I do believe that it is divisive teaching as well, certainly in a K through 12 environment. So it's important to clarify, and I'll emphatically state, Board of Education has not, will not vote to adopt a CRT curriculum. We teach to the Ohio State, the curriculum standards according to the Ohio Department of Education in Ohio. These standards can be easily reviewed by the public. 9 years ago, Perrysburg Schools was 80% white. Is 89% white. It's now 80% white. Our community is getting more diverse. Because of that, let's talk about the work that we are doing. And I'm about, and hopefully you hear this theme over and over again, I'm about preparing our students for the future workforce or future lives once they get past high school. A lot of companies in the area are looking at, are valuing diverse and inclusive workforce. That's what we're trying to teach to as well.
Thank you, Eric. All right, for our second question, Sue, we'll begin with you. There have been some concerns expressed that politics are woven into school curriculum. If you agree with that premise, give specific examples. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. There have been some concerns expressed that politics are woven into school curriculum. If you agree with that premise, give specific examples.
I don't know what I thought I heard you say originally, but it certainly wasn't what came through the second time. So thank you for repeating it. Our teachers are human. They have thoughts, they have opinions. They were raised one way, I was raised another way. We've got different generations. Politics in this country, and I think largely due to social media, has become a hot topic issue. So what do you do about it? There are already guidelines set up in policy that politics are not supposed to be taught. That didn't come out right. Politics are not supposed to be demonstrated. You, a student or a parent or anybody else, should be able to be around a teacher, a staff, or administrator and wonder, I wonder which side they're on. That's the goal. That would be the goal. That's a difficult goal, but that would be the goal. There have been letters written to us about certain flags, certain posters in rooms and that type of thing. I don't think that should be in a school, in a classroom or on the school grounds. Spoiler alert, at our next board meeting, I want to propose that we kind of clean house and only the US flag, the state flag be in every room, prominently displayed. Anything else that is a political nature not be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Okay, Laura, question 2. There have been some concerns expressed that politics are woven into school curriculum. If you agree with that premise, give specific examples.
I do not believe that it's specifically in school curriculum as much as it is in textbooks if we are not looking at them correctly, and online. It can also come in through teaching with our teachers, which we need to have teachers that are fair and balanced. It is okay for our children to have a good debate in class. Classroom discussion, teachers want to see if children can talk freely and support their ideas. But when it comes to whether you make a kid stand up and say they're Democrat, they're Republican, they're independent, whatever political party, ideology, I do not believe that has a place in the classroom. It's for them to decide on their own. And it takes experience and growth to really figure out where you're coming from. And your family too has a big influence on that and the values that you've learned from them.
Thank you, Laura. Lori, question 2. There have been some concerns expressed that politics are woven into school curriculum. If you agree with that premise, please give some specific examples.
I would say no. I think it says my connection's unstable. I don't know. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. It keeps flashing. Studies and we teach civics. That's my answer. That's all I can say. Again, I answer the question. You asked the question. I don't believe it's happening.
Okay. Well, thank you, Lori. We only heard a portion of what you were able to communicate. Sorry, bad connection.
Yeah, I'm sorry
Hopefully
about
that
It's
will
been-
improve as we go along.
It's worked all week. I've
Okay,
practiced all week.
so we are back up to Eric. Eric, please, if there have been some concerns expressed that politics are woven into school curriculum. If you agree with that premise, please give some specific examples.
Yeah, thinking about that, it's a great question. And I don't know that it is being woven into our classrooms. As I think about that, I'm certainly concerned about where politics could start weaving themselves into our classrooms. There's a couple of House bills that are out there right now. House Bill 322, House Bill 327, that in essence state that teachers should not promote or advocate divisive subjects. So when I hear about that, I get concerned about the chilling effect that could have by limiting what our teachers could say in a classroom. Maybe the best intentions of those House bills could end up, really limiting what a experienced, professionally educated and developed teacher could teach in their classroom. Because I worry about what does promote mean, or what is the definition of divisive subject. So I'm not just directly aware of where that's happening, but again, I am concerned that that is a path that we are headed down. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. And David, there have been concerns expressed that politics are woven into school curriculum. Would you please let us know if you agree with that premise and give us some specific examples?
I think it is woven into some of the curriculum, and I think a lot of teachers teach off the cuff. Some of us saw this in Zoom classes. We saw teachers go off for 10 or 15 minutes talking about certain groups of people in the United States and how terrible they were and how racist they were and all the things they're responsible for as a group, identifying them by the color of the skin or by their gender type. At daviddesser.com, the first button is Parents Tell Me Your Stories. And I have countless stories. I even have teachers that have told me some of this, and they don't want to go public. And the ones that do are always told the same things. It didn't happen. Your child imagined it. A fourth grader came home very shook up, having read the book Hands Up, which is about an African-American girl who goes around and puts her hands up for a variety of reasons, including safety. And it really shook this student up. This is fourth grade. There's a 2-foot by 4-foot poster that a parent showed me showing good and bad on different sides of the political spectrum. And everything bad is on one side of the spectrum in this class. The counselors study to balance by gender, race, and so forth, all the honors and AP classes, the 3-year study that's going on, the Harvard bias tests that are being given to some of our students. This is the practical application of CRT in our school. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, David. All right, so we will turn to question 3, and we will start with Laura. Laura, large companies are including DEI, which is short for diversity, equity, and inclusion, into the skill set requirements for their employees. Do you think this is a competency that should be taught to students? Why or why not?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion for large companies, I understand because they are looking for the best and the brightest. However, to overlook somebody because you're trying to hit a certain quotient, just because you want to include all groups and you bypass your best and your brightest, to me, you're just hurting yourself. And teaching our students to do that, I feel bad for our students because as a kid, if you know that you're going to get overstepped and overlooked because of your race, your ethnicity, your gender, your thoughts, your beliefs, how disheartening is that for our children? Why would that make you strive to be a better person?
Thank you, Laura. Lori, could you please address question number 3, which is large companies are including DEI into the skill set requirements for their employees. Do you think this is a competency that should be taught to students? Why or why not?
100% absolutely. I believe that our students need to be students ready for a global economy. Perrysburg is, with the 2020 census, is roughly 90% white, when the nation is 61% white. Students need to learn about other people, and they need to learn about other families, other experiences, and they need to be able to work within a global society. And that's what we're teaching our kids to do. We are teaching our kids to be able to work with others and to understand differences, and to be the best they can be, and to make sure that they can work in a team. We don't all understand each other. We don't all understand where we're coming from, and families and kids' experiences matter. I don't think it's to the detriment of the children. It's to the better. As a mom of a
Okay, Lori, it seems as if we've lost you and time is expired, I believe. Okay.
I can put my
All right,
chat.
Eric, we'll move on to you for question 3. Large companies are including DEI into the skill set requirements for their employees. Do you think this is a competency that should be taught to students? Why or why not?
So my entire service model is really based off of, educating, getting children, as I said before, prepared for their futures. And when I take a look at what those large companies are doing, and you can pull up any large company that has a website here in Northwest Ohio, Owens, Illinois, Dana, Owens Corning, the Andersons, Welltower, any of the large banks in the area. They all have diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives that are at the forefront. And why are we doing this? I say this because also I work for a relatively large company that's also pursuing this type of work with its workers. We're doing this because, one, we recognize that this is where our future customers are going to be. The population is changing and getting more diverse. And then we also, it's good leadership, it's empathy towards our workers. You get more from a diverse workforce. So that ties to the work that this school district is doing, which is why I'm in favor of it. When you look at what our portrait of a jacket, what we're looking for are thoughtful problem solvers. We're trying to develop purposeful communicators, respectful collaborators, persistent innovators, lifelong learners, and empathetic citizens. And the work that we're doing in the diversity, equity, inclusion space is only meant to fulfill those type of qualities, those core competencies that we're developing as a school system. I'm really proud of that work, particularly when we're talking about empathetic citizens and lifelong learners. So yeah, I am in favor of it because it is what the future of the workforce is looking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. David, can you address question number 3? Large companies are including DEI into the skill set requirements for their employees. Do you think this is a competency that should be taught to our students? Why or why not?
Large companies with adults. We're teaching children at a public school. So we have to think about the age of these people, and we have to consider what the taxpayers want. It's one thing to discuss some of these things with adults who have a variety of experiences and have maturity and executive reasoning. We all want diversity and inclusion, and we want equality. Equity can be defined a lot of ways. Should we be doing that to a 5th grader? Thank you.
Thank you, David. And Sue, we'll finish with you. Question 3, large companies are including DEI into the skill set requirements for their employees. Do you think this is a competency that should be taught to students? Why or why not?
I'm glad I was last on this one because my mind's been going all over the place on this question. The definition of DEI includes that word equity, and David touched on that a little bit. Equity is one of those words lately that has been perverted in from its original meaning. And to say that we would want to do diversity, equity, and inclusion, I have a little trouble with that. I can see more equality. In other words, we are all one people. We are all together in this life. And let's as Laura said, let's spread the love. Let's understand one another better. And that's part of where our CQ community team is coming in to try and help bring that idea of inclusion, of understanding somebody who's somewhat different than you. And what does that mean? Our portrait of a jacket, which I have a copy here in front of me, thoughtful problem solvers, purposeful communicators, respectful collaborators, persistent innovators, lifelong learners. That one was mine. Empathetic citizens, and I would change that to compassionate citizens, not necessarily empathetic citizens. That's where I see it in education in K-12. And I agree with David. For adults, it's fine. Go for it.
Thank you, Sue. Okay, question number 4. We will start with Lori. Lori, other than state funding, what is one line item in the school budget that concerns you most, and how will you address it?
Hopefully this works. Hopefully you can hear me. Again, my apologies. You know, I'm out of town on a trip with my mom in New Mexico. So one line item in the budget that concerns me, you know, I'm not exactly sure there's one exact line. Do statewide. So I don't know if we have necessarily, again, one line budget or budget line item. You know, looking it over, obviously we need to be fiscally responsible and we need to get, you know, the biggest bang for our buck, but we also make sure that we're doing what's best for students. You know, we are here to provide for students. It's about students and it's about making students the best students that they can be. And we need to make sure that we are, you know, doing that for our students and following our the mission of the district.
Thank you, Lori. Okay, Eric, other than state funding, what is one line item in the school budget that concerns you most, and how will you address it?
So other than state funding, the line item that concerns me the most is, and I don't mean to be disingenuous here, but I guess it'd be the other major source of funding that comes through the school system, which is the real estate taxes, which is actually a result of kind of the lack of state funding that the Perrysburg district gets in proportion to other school districts in the state. So the state has very much said that local taxes for wealthy districts are what's supposed to make up that shortfall. That's tough to do. Nobody likes levies, but levies in a growing school district where we are not necessarily funded dollar for dollar for all of that growth, it does translate into additional levies. I'm very happy that this, over the past 5-6 years, actually working off the shoulders of previous boards, this school district has gotten to a very comfortable level of financial stability over the next 5-year forecast period. But the growing needs of this district are going to include additional facilities, CapEx on our aging buildings, and also being competitive and continuing to get the excellent workforce that this district has. All of that costs money. So what do I plan on doing? I plan on deploying, the same communication about how the district has effectively spent its dollars, the importance of continuing to fund the district in this period of growth, and always be in levy mode. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. David, other than state funding, what is one line item in the school budget that concerns you most and how will you address it?
Our expenses each year over the next 5 years are rising much faster than our revenues. We've already had this experience a few years ago, and it resulted in what a lot of taxpayers saw as a last-minute levy, and they felt blackmailed threatened with the loss of teachers, extracurriculars, busing. This is not the way to do it. At one hand, we're being told that we have plenty of funds, but we can look and see the expenses each year are outstripping the increase in revenue. This is a formula for the exact same problem we had a few years ago. And we're not even including that we have a lot more students coming than they're thinking. We've got big inflation numbers that are going to affect our budgets 2 and 3 and 4 years out. We need a 10-year plan that lays out a lot of choices for the taxpayers along with their costs for them to choose from. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Sue, could you please address, other than state funding, what is one line item in the school budget that concerns you the most and how will you address it?
Well, one of the things that really concerns me, obviously, is this the rapid amount of growth that we've had over the years. And I've got from one of our dashboards here that since 2008, our population has grown 21%, which is roughly 976 students. That's more than the entire population in our junior high. So to me, our growth is going to be our problem, and how do we address that in our line items? And that is obviously we're going to need additions on buildings. The high school was built so that it could be easily added onto. Hull Prairie was built, excuse me, so it could be easily added onto. But and then there's talk about, do we build another elementary school? At the Perrysburg School Foundation, I talked about taking what we have and maybe reinventing it into ways of using what we have better to help hopefully save some money. We have already done that in creating HPI. So I think our biggest thing is going to be saving the money to be able to buy the land to possibly build a new building. We're already showing that we're doing an improvement in our true days cash. We're almost at 60. That's huge. That's a wonderful thing that we've gotten done. So thank you, taxpayers, for helping us with that.
Thank you, Sue. And Laura, we will finish up on question 4 with you. Other than the state funding, what is one line item in the school budget that concerns you most and how will you address it?
Thank you. When you talk about the budget, I take it that you mean the operating budget. And it's hard to pick just one line item because there's 2 sides of the budget that run tandem with each other. You have the income and you have expenses. So if your income is not keeping up and your expenses are exceeding, which our expenses are going to be exceeding, or yes, definitely increasing because we have a growing population. We are going to need more teachers. We're going to need more staff. And if our local part of our income is not keeping up with it because our state has been budgeted at a certain amount with this new funding deal, they did look specifically at schools and what it takes to run them, but it does not really account for our increase in students. It's great if you have a very static school system year after year, but when you have an increase like we will be experiencing, it's difficult. Salaries and benefits are really going to increase, and we're going to need our local taxpayers, unfortunately, unless the state changes its mind on how it's funding to take care of that. We will also at some point need a bond issue for our buildings.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, question 5 goes to you, Eric, first. Question 5, what is the school board's role in protecting school and staff from COVID outbreaks?
That's a great question. The school board's role in protecting staff and students from COVID outbreaks is pretty high priority as of late. First of all, I'm proud of the success that this district has had since the start of this pandemic in delivering education the best way that we could, certainly during the circumstances when the pandemic first started, and continuing to deliver education and in-person learning since the 2021 school year, 2021-2022 school year has begun. And that is one of my North Stars. As I've said over and over again in board meetings, I am motivated to keep in-person learning done for as long as we can in as safe of a manner as we can. Because of that, we've got limited tools with which to do it, but we need to deploy all of them. Vaccinations for those kids who are eligible is certainly highly encouraged. Masking is a critical piece to our layered strategy here. Masking has been very successful in keeping the levels of quarantines down so that we can continue to deliver in-person learning. Masking is kind of that get out of jail free card right now for all of our students. You wear a mask, you don't have to get quarantined. So, again, keeping our students safe, keeping them in the classroom are my North Stars that continue to guide us until this pandemic's over.
Thank you, Eric. David, can you please address what is the school board's role in protecting school and staff from COVID outbreaks?
It's quite a conundrum. Some students, some children have a disposition where it doesn't impact them very much to wear a mask. And some students have dispositions where it does affect them a lot. And you're talking about a very long-term situation here. So it's quite a conundrum. What do you do? How do you split the baby? One district 15 months ago in Columbus, Ohio, put in a ventilation system with a device in it that kills the virus. And they are one of the lowest rated schools for incident of COVID amongst their staff and their students. So there are ways to try to meet the needs of both constituencies on this particular issue. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Sue, what is the school board's role in protecting school and staff from COVID outbreaks?
School board's role in protecting our staff from anything and students, is paramount. I mean, how can we possibly have a school that is safe and comfortable for everybody to be in if we're not providing the tools that they need to keep it safe? And that's from anything, whether it's a microscopic organism or an intruder coming in from somewhere else. Eric touched on the masking thing, and we were just recently given this little chart here. The green means that you don't have to quarantine. The red means that you do have to quarantine. The yellow are positive students. So the masking here, according to the ODH standards, is what is allowing our students to stay in school. Whether you agree with masking or not, that's how we're helping to keep our students safe and keeping them in school. And there's just the conflicting science is enough to drive a sane person crazy. It really is. And I have trouble in dealing with that. The argument should be directed toward it when we're talking just about COVID, should be directed toward our health department, since the science does not agree. If science doesn't agree, then it should be left to parental choice and in dealing with what is right for their student and their families.
Thank you, Sue. Laura, can you please address what the school board's role is in protecting school and staff from COVID outbreaks?
Thank you. The school board's role when it comes to COVID, this is unprecedented. We haven't had anything like this. It's gone on now for a year and a half. We've tried different modes of education. It's a virus. It needs to run its course. Every year, schools have problems with the flu virus. This is more or less another flu. Not necessarily exactly a flu, but it is like the flu in that it's a virus. And as we can see, there seems to be no stopping it. Vaccinations aren't working like they thought they were. I think we do, as a society, need to pay more attention to the science behind COVID, just the science in general, to vaccinations, and also to those who've already had it and how they're dealing with it. Overall, I think it's a parent's choice. If they want to mask their kids, if they want to send their kids to school, that is their choice. Also, I would say that how long are we going to run from this? Is there an end? Are we going to keep doing this back and forth? Do we understand the impact it's having on our children mentally and education-wise? I think in 10 years from now, we're going to see a huge gap with our kids in education.
Thank you, Laura. And Lori, we'll finish question 5 with you. Could you please tell us the school board's role in protecting school and staff from COVID outbreaks?
A school board is definitely responsible for helping control any kind of outbreak. This is a public health issue. It is a public health crisis. This is not something that we can look at lightly. We have very vulnerable populations in our schools, and all of our students are entitled to a free and appropriate public education. Some of our students have medical issues and disabilities that are affected, and then they need other people around them to help protect. Again, I'm so sorry about this. Again, real quick, I know I only have a little bit of time. My internet's out. It's a public health issue. We need to protect our most vulnerable students. And some of those, they're entitled to a free and appropriate public education. Science is science. Facts don't change. We have to go to the real facts. CDC, World Health Organization, those kind of things. And it is the board's responsibility to protect our students.
Okay, Lori, thank you. We appreciate you hanging in there with that one. Okay, we have one more question before closing remarks. And David, we'll start with you. Identify 3 important considerations that board members should make in evaluating a superintendent of a school district.
The superintendent and the treasurer report to the board. The board is supposed to set a path for the district to go, and the superintendent is supposed to execute it. So we would want to look and see if they're executing the path that the board wants done. Thank you.
Thank you, David. All right, Sue, what do you think are the 3 important considerations that board members should make in evaluating a superintendent of a school district?
In trying to evaluate a superintendent and watching other superintendents in addition to our own, you can see some that don't respond to the direction that the board gives them. And I would have to say that our superintendent definitely is Johnny on the spot in responding to anything that the board gives him on his plate. Sorry, Tom, at any time of day, just about. He's been very good about that. So that would be one, his response to the board. And the board is representing the community. So there's that pipeline there so that by responding to the board, he's also responding to the community. I think those are very important. The other thing that I think I'm going to judge a good superintendent versus an okay or a poor one is how do they work with the students? Our superintendent is always out with the students, always attending functions, always going through the buildings. He knows students by name. They tweet with each other. And I like to see that kind of interaction. The other thing is his leadership or her leadership. And we had a large number of people apply for our treasurer's position because they wanted to work with our superintendent who has earned state recognition. That's awesome.
Thank you, Sue. Okay, Laura, could you please identify 3 important considerations that board members should make in evaluating a superintendent of a school district?
I believe that the execution of the board's policies and decisions, that is the number one for a good leader. That is what they are there to do. Teachers and employees' effectiveness is very important. Are they carrying out what they're supposed to in terms of teaching? Are we hitting the state standards? But more importantly, are our children learning what they need to learn? Are we making sure that the kids get this down? And then communication within the district. They need to be excellent communicators with the staff, with the parents, even with the students, and most importantly, to the community at large.
Thank you, Laura. Lori, can you please identify 3 important considerations that board members should make in evaluating a superintendent of a school district?
Yes, I've switched my phone, so hopefully this works better. I think it's important that we know, what their history is, what their background is, and that they're wanting to listen and work with the community. I also believe that it's important that they understand the community, that they understand school finance, and they understand how schools should operate and what the standards are for a school. I also feel it's important that they're actively involved. And I think it's important that we look at what they've done in their past and what they've done, in their other positions and how education has affected their background and how effective they are as a school leader.
All right, thank you, Lori. And finally, Eric, could you please identify 3 important considerations that board members should make in evaluating a superintendent of a school district?
So 3 considerations for the effectiveness of the superintendent. The first one would be educational effectiveness, the delivery of a great education to a school district. It needs to be something that's measurable. There's certainly not without measurable criteria for which to assess that. Things like the state report card or performance indexes, surveys, graduation rates, levels of scholarships. All of those would be individual criteria under that, measurable effectiveness of the delivery of education. I'd say the second thing, and this goes towards all leaders, but the ability to see into the needs of the future and put things in place to start addressing those needs early. So long-term planning and areas like finances, facilities, the needs of students, their own leadership development pipeline. Who's on deck to be the next building leaders, the next administrative leaders, all very important. Actually, state funding requirements is a little extra special thing we have with our superintendent, who was able to lead not only our district, but at a state level in changing how schools are going to be funded into the future. And so the third one would then be and you've heard other board members say it, and I agree with it, that community connection. Those touches within the community, the ability to hold fast during the toughest of times, setting the right messages in ways that will be listened to by others, relationships outside of the community with government officials, and making sure it has the trust of its employees.
All righty, thank you, Eric. Okay, now we will move into the closing remarks, and we'll start in reverse order with Lori going up first.
Okay, again, I apologize. I want to thank you to the League of Women Voters and Way Public Library for hosting this event today. Again, I apologize. I am actually in New Mexico on a bucket list trip with my mom. And I did this way before I decided to run for school board. So as an educator and a mom with a child with a disability, you know, I want to be a voice for all. I'm not a single issue candidate. I'm here to work on more than one issue and to serve all students. As a 26-year educator, I've had experience from preschool to high school to central office, and I'm now in a leadership role. And all decisions I have made have been student-centered. Again, as an educator, I also know that research and factual information is vitally important. Just because somebody says something, it doesn't make it true. One of my favorite quotes is, "You are entitled to your opinion, but you are not entitled to your own facts." I decided to run for the school board in June after hearing a current school board member attempt to pass off their opinion as their own, which is inherently wrong and detrimental to the great work that has been done in the district. I want to ensure that the growth continues in a positive way in Perrysburg. Living in this community for 18 years in the same house and in the same neighborhood, I am invested in this community and I don't plan to leave anytime soon. This is the community my family knows. This is the community my son, Lucas, who has special needs, knows. And it's a great community. Wood County is a great community for adults with disabilities. I am a proven leader, skilled in process improvement, communication, strategic planning, and school budgets. I am passionate about kids. I'm passionate about public education and inclusion of all. And I know how important every voice is and the experiences behind it. I am ready to serve my community and look forward to the opportunity to do so, and humbly ask for your vote on November 2nd. And please reach out to me on my Facebook page or votereferent.org, because I know you missed a lot of this, and I appreciate and thank you again.
All right, Lori, sorry, time's up. Thank you. Okay, we will now move to Laura.
Thank you. Thank you to the Women League of Voters, Way Library, and those of you who have taken the time to tune in today. Perrysburg, I hope everyone here in the community understands the wonderful facilities, staff, students, parents, and community that we have. We have programs and funding that other districts could only wish for, that we are blessed with. We have so much potential within our district on tap, and it is heightened by our newer residents that are coming in. They have so much potential for us to tap into. I think it is imperative that we are proactive in our district. In my experience, reactive is costly and it ends up being too little, too late, and it's our students that suffer. As a board member, one is responsible for the future. It's a tough task. There's a lot on your shoulders with it. We need to ensure that we are doing the best with our funding, our resources, and that we have for our students, because our students are the future. I look forward to working with the local governments in all matters that influence our schools. I have over 11 years experience previously on Genoa School Board. I've been through everything there because of it being a small district. There is so much in terms of construction and finance. I am so happy to see that we've finally come around in the state with finance. There's still room for improvement. There's always room for improvement. I think we need to be open to growth in both our mindset and our community. I ask for your vote on November 2nd. And if you have any questions, please go ahead and visit my Facebook page, and you're even go ahead and look at my old page for Genoa, and feel free to email me at votelaurameinke.com. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Sue, closing remarks.
I too would like to thank the league for finding a way to hold this event and not having to cancel it because of the outbreaks. And to our beloved host of Way Library and your tech team, you've done a wonderful job with us and reminding us when to turn our buttons off. I thank you for that as well. But especially kudos to those of you who are listening either now or on demand, because it shows that you are responsible And you're kind of showing the Jacket way. You're being responsible, ready, and respectful in watching this and being a concerned citizen. And I think that that's really awesome. So kudos to you guys for watching this. I'm going to repeat an apology that I made at the Perrysburg School Foundation. And I've always prided myself in the last 8 years of being one of your board members that I've always been Johnny on the spot and responding to emails. And in July, my computer did all sorts of hiccuping, which I am still finding there are problems with it. And my son got married and there were just a lot of issues. I am still trying to recover from that. So patience with me on getting those emails. I will write to you, I promise. In regards to being a board member, I am surprised at how much I have enjoyed it. Yes, it's been a Dramamine drive. There have been a lot of highs and a lot of lows, but at the same token, there's nothing more rewarding than being able to have somebody write to me and then say, I need help with this, and then I'm able to help. And that's been awesome. And sometimes I'm not able to help, but I can explain, I can teach, and I like that. Well, I'm a teacher. Maybe that's why I like doing that. There have been so many questions today that I thought were well thought out, that were good, and would love the opportunity to write to you about them. You can visit my website, SueLarimer.com, and check it out there. And I would be happy to email you in this regard immediately, I promise.
Okay. David, closing remarks.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody for working on this event for the citizens. We have three main issues. The first is the budget and the bond issues coming up and the additional levies coming up. Those aren't being communicated, so we're going to end up with some last minute situations. And there are other options that if we took the time ahead of time to look at all the things we can do, we could make better choices for everyone. And it's just a basic, proper way to communicate as a public body. Secondly, teachers do an important and noble job, and we're doing a good job in many ways here. But to make expensive changes just for the sake of change, and we don't even know if these changes will succeed. We only have so many dollars, and we can focus these dollars on newfangled ideas, or we can focus it on more teachers for first, second, third graders who are falling behind. If you want to change those kids' lives, we all know you have to do it early. It's very unlikely to catch up to them later. We have to put a focus on that. And then just general communication. Many parents have gone to my website, daviddesser.com, and told me their experiences in the school. And now I already know how the story's going to end. The story's going to end by them saying they contacted the teacher, the principal, the board member, the administrator, and nothing happened. They were told they imagined it, their child misunderstood. No one investigates, no one checks it out. This causes the issues to grow larger. This is why there's 150 people at a board meeting. It's the lack of communication going on. Everybody gets surprised. Everyone's told they're imagining things, and it's just not a good way to communicate with people. I humbly ask for you to vote for me on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And lastly, Eric, closing remarks, please.
Thank you, Colleen. So I too will thank the League of Women Voters, the Way Public Library, their technical staff for helping to deliver this forum. I also want to thank the community and the screeners for the questions. We've talked about masking and COVID, CRT and diversity, equity, and inclusion, our budget, and our even how to evaluate a superintendent. Really great questions that really go to the issues that we're dealing with today. As another counselor, as somebody said during the city council forum, the school system is really at the core of the culture that is Perrysburg. And in the midst of a highly divisive environment during a once-in-a-generation pandemic, I am proud of the work that this school board has done in supporting the district and the many accomplishments that the school system has attained. Perrysburg High School, or Perrysburg schools, despite all of the distractions out there, and these distractions will pass by us someday. And then we'll be on to what the long-term challenges are. How do we develop our students in an ever-changing, increasingly complex world? But in the midst of all of this, we've brought financial stability to this district, supported a superintendent, as I mentioned earlier, who's been critical in changing how state funding will occur in the state of Ohio. In the Perrysburg district, what was normally about a $15-16 million amount of scholarships, our students attained $21 million worth of scholarships. Our school district by the niche survey just ranked Perrysburg schools as number 21 out of 609 as one of the best public schools in Ohio. Number 9, one of the best schools out of 609 for athletes. Number 26 of one of the districts out of 609 that has the best teachers. A lot of great things have happened, are happening, and will continue to happen in the Perrysburg district. And I hope to be a part of that growth in the future. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Eric. That concludes our program. Thank you, candidates, for participating today. And Jackie, I'll turn it over to you for closing remarks.
Thank you, Colleen. And a big thank you to our school board candidates. We really appreciate you being here today and being open with your answers. I would again like to recognize the league, as everyone else has done, in particular our Voter Services Committee who coordinated all this today, as well as the volunteers who served here today. Thank you. Again, Wade Library did an awesome job. The IT team, I cannot thank you enough. We really appreciate your hard work. Finally, thank you to the community attendees watching from home. That concludes our 2021 Candidates Forum. A link to the recording of the forum will be available on the League of Women Voters of the Perrysburg area website in the next few days. Again, putting in that plug for vote411.org, you'll find more Q&A with the candidates, as well as links to their websites and social media. Thank you for watching, and please vote. Thanks.